As fall approaches, we're cozying up to these great recipes. Welcome to At the Table. I'm Cassidy, and here with me today I have Miss Karen Wilson. She is an Extension Master Food Volunteer here in Sampson County, and today we are going to be talking about lots of those fall comfort foods. This is certainly a time of year where I welcome new recipes, and a soup is something that I'm really excited to try out today. So what kind of soup do you have that we're going to be working on today?
Well, today we're going to make potato and leek soup. It's one of my favorite in my family's. I've been making it for many years. But one thing I do add differently is I don't add cream. I only use broth. And it's a wonderful soup to have on a cold fall day or just a day where you need something comforting on your stomach. It's also easy for your digestive system. So we're going to learn about how to make this. Also, I'm going to talk about later about leeks and why leeks are a wonderful part of the onion family. And if you don't know about them, you might want to learn so you can add them to your recipes.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to learn about the leeks myself because I have never tried them before. I have never worked with them, so I'm excited about this new vegetable flavor that's going to go in. So show us what we need to do first.
So the first thing we're going to do is you're just going to take a regular potato or any kind of potato that you enjoy working with, and we're going to just peel it. When you're cooking with potatoes in soups or liquids, it's best to peel it. Some people might keep the skin on, but I like to take it off. I think it allows the potato to absorb the flavor of the broth and make it more tasty to eat. So what we'll do is we'll cut the potato in half, and then we'll create a base. This potato is very wet, and just kind of like you do all vegetables, you're going to kind of pretend like you're making French fries. And then you're going to come back and you're just going to dice it. And in dicing it, you're going to just get kind of uniform sizes so they all cook at the same time. And then we'll add those to our pot. The other thing that I like to add is celery leaves. Most people don't consume these, but this is a wonderful part of the celery that can add flavor to any soup. And I just dice this up and throw it in. My favorite is to cook this with potatoes. Even if you're going to do mashed potatoes, I'll add some celery. Now, if you're not a fan of celery, you can obviously leave this out. I do have family members who hoard celery, and they're always worried that I'm adding it into my dishes, and they try to kind of detect it if they can. And so we're going to go ahead and put this in the pot. We're going to add some broth, and we're just going to cook it until the potatoes are soft. And then once they're soft, we're going to mash them. And so I want to finish cutting up this potato and get this soup started. And Cassidy, if you want to start your recipe.
Yeah, so today I am working on a maple glazed vegetable and chicken sausage recipe. This is one of those sheet pan meals that you can really prep the ingredients ahead of time, and then once you get home from work, you just throw it on a sheet pan and you're good to go. You can get laundry done or some other things. But one of the vegetables that goes in this recipe is a butternut squash. And this is certainly a fall food that is one of my favorites. I think a lot of times people are kind of intimidated by those winter squash or those fall squash. And so a butternut is the long kind of gourd shaped squash. It does have a skin on the outside. The inside of it is orange. Sometimes people get them confused with a spaghetti squash, but those are your kind of oval and yellow squash with the angel hair texture on the inside. So like I said, these kind of are a gourd shape, and so towards the bottom where it circles out, that is where all of your seeds tend to be. And so what you want to do is take a spoon once you've cut it and just kind of take that spoon and scrape the inside. Sometimes they can be a little tough to get started. So if you have to use a knife, then that might be a way to get it started. But this one's doing all right. But just scrape those seeds out. You can save these seeds and plant them later on in the year. I'm really Even though I'm not a gardener, I do know where our resources are in the county. If you're interested in learning how to garden, reach out to the Extension Master Gardeners here in Sampson County, and they'd be a great resource to kind of help you know when to plant and when to expect a harvest. So I've gotten that done. Like I mentioned, there is an outside skin, and sometimes a butternut squash can be difficult to peel. So if you pop it in the microwave for say 10-second intervals just to soften it up, that can be a good way to work on peeling it. But if you have a flat surface, then what you can do is just take your knife and kind of cut away that outside skin. And then from there, you just want to start cutting it so that you have pieces that are manageable to work with. And then we're going to work on cubing it. So while we're away, I'll continue to cut this, and then when we come back, I'll show you what goes in the remainder of this recipe.
Introducing the Star Communications app. All the tools you need in one convenient location. You can access Watch TV everywhere, check local channel lineup, check your Star email, view and pay your Star bill, report troubles, use your Star security app, check your home voicemail, sign up for Crowd Fiber, check your Wi-Fi speed. The list keeps going and going. Download for free from the App Store or Google Play.
Welcome back. I am just working on finishing up the cutting of the butternut squash. Next, in this sheet pan meal, we want to add in some chicken sausage, and there are lots of different flavors that you might come across in the grocery store. I bought this at a Food Lion, so they're in normal grocery stores, typically around the bacon and sausage and those kinds of foods. But I just like to kind of cut them a little bit of a diagonal cut while they are on the pan. This allows them a little bit more surface area to make contact with the heat of the pan, and that helps them to cook a little bit more evenly. But these are fully cooked, so that is one thing that we're not quite as worried about in terms of food safety. So I'm gonna get these into our bowl, and Ms. Karen, you've got some leeks that we need to work on, right?
Absolutely. So leeks are my favorite. I love leeks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just take and we're going to cut. I've already pre-cut. We take this part off. We're just going to leave it. And what we're going to work with is primarily the white part here. At the bottom, there's a little knob that you've got to cut off, so we won't use that. And here's my favorite part about the leeks. A member of the onion family, most of the time you cut onions and you're crying because the onions irritate the eyes. Leeks do not. And they're also very sweet, and they're mild in flavor, so they won't overpower a dish. They also are easy on the digestive system for those who are looking for alternatives. But if you can see, and I'll put some here, is they have these nice little ridges. And these ridges are going to help you cut into different segments without having to do a whole lot. You're just going to go down. And if I just do a few here, I'll take part of it. I'll show you, they fall apart real easily, and there you have these nice little curly cubes. And these curly cubes will just will kind of cook down as you heat them up. The other thing about leeks is these are very clean, but sometimes when you buy leeks in the grocery store, you'll need to clean them. So the best way I like to do it is just what I've done. I've cut off the end, I've cut it in half, and I just want to get in some water, and you want to get into all those different segments to clean out the sand and the dirt that can get into there. And you'll do that with each piece. Or if you're lucky, you'll find these really nicely and clean. So how I came across leeks is many years ago. I was looking for a recipe. I found this recipe for a niece that was sick. And we had potatoes, but I've never tried leeks. And I wanted something that maybe she could consume. And so we made this recipe, and it is now one of our family's favorite recipes to make, and we make it all year round. So as I continue to cut, you're just going to go all the way up, and sometimes you'll have larger pieces like that. I like to put them off to the side. And sometimes we'll pull the larger pieces off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to saute them. But before I saute them, most recipes that you'll look for in leek potato soup calls for a tablespoon of butter. And in order to kind of make this a little healthier, there's 3 teaspoons and 1 tablespoon. So I only do 1 teaspoon of butter in the saute, and then I do 2 teaspoons of olive oil. And this way you still get the butter flavor, but you get the healthier options of olive oil when you're sauteing. For this, so what we're going to do is we just turn on your pan. These will cook up real quickly. You just put them in there. Don't need to add salt at this point, and they'll cook down nicely. Once these get cooked, we'll go ahead and we'll finish off our soup. Until then, Cassidy, do you want to show how to do the Brussels sprouts for the recipe?
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes with Brussels sprouts, they may have these knobby little ends. So I like to go ahead, take that end off, and then cut them in half. Cutting them in half helps to reduce the size, of course, and helps them to cook a little faster. If you leave them whole, it takes a really long time to cook Brussels sprouts. Now, sometimes you may have a bigger one, sort of like this, and if so, and there are some pieces that you want to take off, it can be good to take off those outer leaves, and then you have a nice, prettier product to work with. But again, still, you just cut that end off and then cut it in half. And something that's this size, it may be okay to go ahead and cut it in half again. That is personal preference, but this one was pretty big, so I'm actually going to go ahead and cut that one. And this recipe calls for ½ pound of Brussels sprouts. From time to time, I have used frozen from, of course, the frozen vegetables section, just dumping those onto a pan. That works okay as well. They're actually a little softer from the blanching process. That's part of the freezing method at the processor. So whether you're using fresh or frozen, totally fine either way. But if you are using fresh, they generally come in 1 pound bags, so just cut that in half. But I'm gonna start working on these and get a few more finished up, and then when we come back, I'll toss it in some oil and get it into the oven.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let Star Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact Star today.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm just adding a little bit of olive oil to our bowl, and I want to make sure that I toss that really well. We've got a lot of vegetables, a lot of different foods in this bowl, so I want to make sure that everything has a nice even coat with our oil, and that way we don't have just one spot of oil where our spices kind of collect in that one spot. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you're tossing it really well before you put your spices in. And this will also help you know if you might need to add a little more. Sometimes it can, especially if you're following measurements for olive oil exactly, it may not always stretch across all of your vegetables. So I kind of like to eyeball that just a little bit. This looks like it's coated pretty well. And because it is coated, you don't absolutely have to spray your pan, but if you want to, just to prevent sticking, then that's fine as well. So we've got our olive oil in there. Next, I'm gonna add some Italian seasoning. And I'm probably gonna do a ½ teaspoon. And then we'll add in some salt. And some black pepper, and give that a good toss. Now, some people like to toss in their salt a little. They like to do it after the food cooks. It really depends on preference, and for me, it depends on the vegetable. Whenever I'm working with a butternut squash and Brussels sprouts, this recipe, it's nice that they go together, but anytime I'm working with them individually or together, I think adding the salt before it cooks really helps the flavors to develop on the pan. Now, certainly you could do half of your salt before and then salt it after. You can always add salt to a recipe, but you can't take it back. So this looks like we've got a nice coat on all of our vegetables. I'm gonna put that on the pan, and that'll roast at 400 or 425 degrees for probably 25-30 minutes. But partway through, I'm actually going to take this out of the oven, put my vegetables and other foods back into the bowl, and toss it in some maple syrup. So I'll go ahead and get this on the pan. And Miss Karen, what do you need to do next for your recipe?
So the next step for my recipe is we're going to go ahead and take a potato masher, and we're going to mash the potatoes inside the pot. So we're just going to make it just a little creamy. The way I do this instead of pureeing them, I like to have chunks. I like to have a little bit of broth when I eat this. So I'm just going to kind of mash these until I get a bit thicker. Mashing the potatoes will also thicken the sauce, and I just kind of eyeball it, just to make sure it's the consistency that I would like. My soup looks a little darker because I use bone broth, and bone broth will sometimes make things appear a little darker or brown, so where if you use regular chicken broth, it'll be lighter in color. At this point, I'm going to add our sauteed leeks, and you can see the leeks have cooked up really nicely, and we're just going to add those into the recipe. And I'm going to go ahead and give that a good stir. And you can see how it's thickened. At this point, this is how I eat this with salt and pepper to taste. Now there's other ways that you can continue to eat this. You can add some dairy products. One of the things I recommend just to cut back on cream is just 1 cup of whole milk. You'll add that in. You'll let this cool down just a little bit. You can also add some other toppings once you serve it. You can add cheddar cheese or bacon and so forth, and those will make a nice yummy soup. The other thing that I like to do with leeks is we never waste anything, so we add our toppers, put it in a little glass, get you a little kind of ambiance at your table, and so that, you know, we're just kind of enjoying our vegetables as in other ways. Leeks are a wonderful thing that you can purchase at your local stores. It mostly grows in the eastern counties because it needs a sandy, loose soil. But you can try to raise them in garden beds. If you contact your local extension agency, they can help you create a bed that will actually grow leeks if you find that you like them. I do. And they can grow in greenhouses or that you have in your backyard year-round if you're able to control the temperatures as well. So I hope that you embrace this wonderful leek. The other thing that you can do with leeks, embracing that, is roasting them. You can take the chopped leeks and add what Cindy just used, chicken sausage, and kind of make a dish with that. You can add some rice, whole grain rice, and add the leeks to that. They're a wonderful, diverse vegetable, and something that you can enjoy. They're also very sweet. So for those of that, and the last tip that I have about leeks is they won't make your breath smell like onions do. So that's all I have, Cassidy.
Yeah, so while we go to break, we're gonna just make sure that things get cooking just a little bit more, and then when we come back, Miss Karen is going to show us how to mash our potatoes and put everything together. So we'll see you guys back here shortly.
Let's get out of here.
Protect what matters most in your life with security from Star Communications.
Hi, welcome back to At the Table. We're going to go ahead and finish this wonderful leek and potato soup. And one of the ways that we finish it is we just add about a cup of whole milk. Not all milk are the same. You do want to use whole milk because you kind of need a little bit of that thickness and that fattiness to kind of make it nice and creamy. And so we're just going to stir this. Now with this soup, after I added the leeks, we did cook it for just on low temperature for about another 10 minutes, just so the flavors can incorporate. And you don't want your soup completely hot and boiling when you add the milk. You do want it to cool down just a little bit, but be warm. And then all you have to do now is just take it and put it in your bowl. And then we can add some toppings. We call it jacking it up. One of our favorite toppings is to add cheese. We're going to use low-fat cheese. This is a way to get the great flavor of cheddar cheese without all the additional fat. If I can open up this bag, we'll do that. Here we go. So you're just going to add your cheese on top. Some other toppings that you can consider would be some light sour cream that you can add to that. That'll just add it a little bit more thicker and give a tangier taste. And my newfound favorite, thanks to Cassidy, is sun-dried tomatoes. And you can sprinkle some sun-dried tomatoes. We're actually going to try that today on top of this. And then you just grab a spoon and enjoy. So Cassidy, I see those roasted vegetables over there with your chicken sausage. Are you ready for that maple syrup?
Yes, they look so good over here on the pan. They have roasted very, very nicely. One thing that I forgot to mention before I put them in the oven, there is a difference between roasting and baking. If you are baking, it's typically at a lower temperature. With roasting, you need that higher heat, that 400, 425 degrees. But with this recipe, normally with roasting, we tell you to spread it out on the pan, not to have pieces to touch. But the fact that we were using a butternut squash and kind of larger, even though they were cut in half, Brussels sprouts, it actually worked really well for this recipe for them to touch just a little bit, because the steam from them cooking one another kind of helped to amplify that cooking and make that cooking process a little bit faster. So now I'm going to use a little bit of maple syrup, just kind of drizzle it on top. Now, if you need measurements, you can certainly use about a tablespoon, 1 to 2 tablespoons for this amount of food. If you decide that you want to go that route, you can spray a measuring spoon with some nonstick cook spray before you put in your maple syrup. Same if you choose to use honey. Spray that spoon before you start to use it and fill it with that sugar, and that will help prevent it from sticking. So I'm just going to move this around on the pan a little bit more. And then we're gonna put it back into the oven, and we'll definitely show you guys what it looks like once it comes out of the oven and finishes up just a little bit. But we really hope that you all have enjoyed the recipes that we've shared with you today. I know I'm super excited to try that leek and potato soup. And thank you for introducing me to leeks. We were able to taste test a few of those in between our breaks, and they were so delicious. So really excited to try this recipe, and I think it's probably gonna be one of my new favorites as well.
Good to hear that.
Yeah, so we hope you all enjoy these fall comfort foods as well, and we're going to continue that kind of theme on into our next episode. So hope you guys will join us back for the next episode, and we'll see you at the table.